The snow hadn't fully melted, even though winter was slowly passing. Small patches of ice shimmered under the late afternoon sun, scattering reflections along the sidewalk. Jake Thompson tightened his worn gray jacket and held tightly to the tiny hand of Lily, his 4-year-old daughter, whom he had just picked up from Sunshine Creek Preschool. "Daddy, I colored Elsa today," Lily chirped, her little hand swinging with each step. That bright voice always warmed Jake's heart, even on days like this, when he'd just spent 6 hours repairing a busted pipe in the freezing basement of an old motel. He smiled faintly and nodded. "Did you? I bet Elsa's really proud to have a superfan like you." Lily beamed, her cheeks rosy from the cold and her eyes sparkling. And then, suddenly, she stopped. Jake glanced down, puzzled. He followed her gaze. There it was, Sweet Moments Bakery, a small but well-known shop in the neighborhood, famous for its beautifully decorated cakes. In a large display window, a majestic Elsa birthday cake stood tall among a field of artificial snow, shimmering in icy blue and white frosting, with delicate sugar snowflakes all around. Lily was frozen in place, her eyes locked on the cake. She said nothing, just stared, still holding her father's hand but refusing to move. Jake's chest tightened. "Lily, come on, sweetheart. Miss Penny is waiting for us back home," he said gently, tugging her hand. But Lily shook her head. "Just looking, Daddy, just a little." Her voice was barely more than a whisper. Her eyes didn't move from the cake. If you love heartwarming and emotional stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an episode. Jake swallowed hard. He glanced at the small price tag beneath the cake. $64.99. That wasn't just a number. To Jake, it was 2 days' wages after taxes. It was gas money. It was dinner made of cheap ramen noodles. It was the overdue rent he hadn't yet paid. It was something he simply couldn't afford. "Be a good girl, okay? Daddy promises we'll do something special for your birthday." Jake bent down, brushing a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. "But for now, we have to go, all right?" Lily blinked, finally looking up at him. Her face didn't pout or whine. There was only a quiet disappointment. Still, she nodded. "Okay." Her voice was soft, careful, like she didn't want to hurt him. Jake took her hand and led her away. But with each step, he felt like he was walking through shards of glass. He knew he couldn't give Lily the shiny things behind glass windows. But he could give her something more, his love, his presence, and every sacrifice he had left. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep with her worn teddy bear clutched in her arms, Jake sat alone at the tiny kitchen table. He opened his wallet. Inside were $12, 3 unpaid bills, and a small photo of him cradling Lily as a newborn. His face looked younger in the photo, his eyes tired but filled with joy. Jake leaned back in his chair and stared at the cracked ceiling. He could still hear Lily's voice echoing in his mind. "Just looking, Daddy." He wondered how long it had been since he'd bought something just to make her smile. Not because she needed it, but because she dreamed of it. Maybe that Elsa cake was just a small thing to most people, but to Lily, it was everything. He dropped his head into his hands, his heart aching. And that night, in the dim light of their modest kitchen, Jake made himself a silent vow. On her birthday, no matter what it took, even if it meant working nights or skipping meals, he would make Lily smile like Elsa on that cake. Jake had always believed in simple things: honesty, hard work, and love. But the past had a way of clinging to him like a shadow, following every step he took, even years later as he stood in his cramped apartment, folding Lily's little clothes. He stared at a tiny pink hoodie with Elsa on the front. The thread was fraying near the sleeves. She wore it so often it was practically part of her. Jake smiled gently, but his heart ached as memories came rushing back. Memories of Emily Carter. They had met during their sophomore year at Lake Ridge University. Jake was studying mechanical engineering, working part-time cleaning gutters and fixing pipes to pay for classes. Emily was everything he wasn't: elegant, ambitious, and from a well-off family. She was majoring in marketing and already had offers lined up for internships with big firms. But for some reason, Emily had noticed him. It started with small talks at the campus cafe, then study sessions, then secret kisses behind the engineering building. For a while, Jake let himself believe that maybe love really could bridge the gap between two worlds. But cracks started to show early. Emily would flinch whenever her friends teased her about dating the handyman. She never introduced him to her parents. And whenever they went out, Jake noticed her discomfort when he pulled up in his rusty Honda Civic. "You deserve better than me," he had said once, half joking. Emily had smiled then, kissed him, and whispered, "Just promise you'll never leave." He had promised, but she broke hers. One rainy Thursday, Jake arrived at campus to a scene he would never forget. A woman, furious, screaming, was standing in front of the business school. She was confronting Emily, who stood trembling near the steps. "You think you can steal my husband?" the woman yelled, her voice echoing through the quad. Jake stopped in his tracks, stunned. "Everyone knows about you and Richard," the woman shouted, throwing a stack of photos at Emily's feet. The photos fluttered like dead leaves across the wet pavement. Jake didn't want to look, but he did. And there they were, photos of Emily in a luxury hotel room, in a car, walking arm in arm with a man at least twice her age. Emily collapsed to her knees. Jake turned away. He didn't speak to her for days. He couldn't. When he finally confronted her, she was already in tears. "I was stupid," she sobbed. "I didn't love him. I felt so small. I wanted to feel like I had power, like I could belong somewhere else." Jake stared at her, feeling like he was looking at a stranger. "I'm pregnant," she blurted out, as if the words would fix everything. "What?" His voice cracked. "I think it's yours," she whispered. "You think," he repeated, stunned. "You don't even know?" They argued for hours. He couldn't forgive her. Not then. Not when he couldn't trust a single thing she said. He walked out. And Emily? She disappeared. Weeks passed. Then months. Jay tried to focus on school, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. He hated how much he still cared, how her name lingered in his mind like a bruise that wouldn't heal. Then, one evening, someone knocked on his door. It was Emily. She looked nothing like the girl he remembered. Her face was pale, hollow. Her eyes had lost their fire. She was 6 months pregnant, wearing a coat that didn't fit, her belly obvious beneath the thin fabric. "I have nowhere to go," she said softly. "My parents disowned me. Richard's gone. His wife ruined me. I dropped out. I sleep in a shelter now." Jake didn't move. "I know I don't deserve your help," she whispered. "But please, please, Jake. I don't want this baby to be born on the street." And then she did something he never thought he'd see. Emily, once proud, once sharp, once unreachable, fell to her knees on his porch and begged him. Jake felt his entire world tilt. He remembered the promise he had made. And even though she had broken hers, the love he once had and the life she carried were real. He helped her up. He let her stay. And just like that, Jake Thompson became responsible for someone else's future. Not just hers, but the tiny heartbeat she carried inside. He worked nonstop. He took extra plumbing jobs in basements and attics and rich people's bathrooms. His hands were cracked from cold water, his back stiff from crawling under sinks. He came home every night to cook for Emily, rub her aching feet, and reassure her that everything would be okay. And somehow, in the quiet moments, watching her fall asleep on his worn couch, hearing the baby kick, seeing her smile weekly after dinner, he began to believe it too. Maybe they could start again. Maybe life would give them a second chance. But life had other plans. It was a frigid night in December. Emily woke up screaming, clutching her stomach. Jake rushed her to the hospital. It was too soon, 8 weeks too soon. She was bleeding. The nurses moved quickly. Alarm sounded. A team rushed her down the hall while Jake stood frozen. 2 hours later, a nurse came out. "You have a daughter," she said. But Emily didn't survive. She had lost too much blood. Her heart had given out during the emergency C-section. Jake didn't cry right away. He was too stunned, too hollow. They placed a tiny bundle in his arms, so small, her face wrinkled like a raisin, but breathing. "Lily, she needs you," the nurse whispered. And in that moment, Jake knew. Whatever pain, betrayal, or regret had come before, it didn't matter. Because in his arms was someone who didn't care about the past, only the present, only love. Jake kissed her forehead and whispered, "I'll never leave you. Not ever." The hospital let Jake bring Lily home after 6 long weeks in the NICU. She was tiny, barely 4 pounds, and everything terrified him. The way she squeaked in her sleep, the way her chest rose and fell so delicately, like a feather floating on water. He didn't sleep much. He didn't dare. Every hour, he checked to make sure she was breathing. Jake had never changed a diaper before, never bathed a newborn, never fed one, never soothed one, never rocked one through the night. But he learned. He learned through trial and error, through exhaustion and desperation. He learned how to cradle her with one arm while holding a wrench in the other, how to boil baby bottles at midnight and fix a clogged sink at 6 a.m. No one showed him how to be a father, but he became one anyway. He moved out of his college apartment and found a small, run-down one-bedroom unit in a quieter part of town. The building was old, the stairs creaked, and the heating barely worked, but it was affordable, and more importantly, it was theirs. Jake turned the living room into Lily's nursery. He patched up a broken crib someone had left on the sidewalk, sanded the splinters, and painted it with leftover primer. He hung paper snowflakes from the ceiling. On the wall, he taped a faded picture of Emily, just her smiling, nothing else, to remind Lily someday of where she came from. There were no grandparents, no aunts or uncles, no friends who stayed long after college ended. Just Jake and Lily. And plumbing. Jake took whatever work he could find: burst pipes, leaking faucets, broken water heaters. He did solo jobs during the day and larger contracts with local contractors on weekends. Sometimes he brought Lily with him in her carrier and left her in the back room with a bottle and a lullaby playlist. He apologized often. To clients. To Lily. To himself. He missed showers. Missed meals. Missed being 25. He missed having choices. But he had Lily. And when she smiled, when those tiny lips curled and her blue eyes locked onto his like she knew, it was enough. More than enough. One particularly hard winter, work slowed down. Jake fell behind on rent. His landlord, Mr. Garrison, banged on the door one morning while Lily was sick with a cold. "I gave you 2 extensions," the old man growled. "You got till the 1st, or you're out." Jake nodded silently, cradling Lily in his arms. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. Instead, he worked overtime, took graveyard shifts, shoveled snow for neighbors, repaired a busted toilet at a bar for just $50 and a sandwich. At night, while Lily slept with a humidifier humming beside her, Jake stared at her little hand resting on his chest and whispered, "Just hold on, baby. I'm not going to let the world get to you. Not while I'm here." When Lily turned 1, Jake used a cardboard box to build her a castle. He painted it purple and taped a paper crown to her head. She clapped and babbled, crawling through the cutout door with glee. It wasn't Disney World. It wasn't even close. But it was home. Jake baked a cake from a box mix, his first ever, and drew a crooked one with blue frosting. She smashed it with her fingers and smeared it across her face. And laughed. Jake laughed too, tears in his eyes, his hands shaking. They were okay. They were making it. Time passed. Jake found steadier work with a local plumbing company. The pay wasn't amazing, but it covered rent, groceries, and enough to replace Lily's growing wardrobe from secondhand stores. Every few weeks, he bought her a new coloring book or a small toy for the clearance bin. She never asked for more, never threw tantrums, never cried when he had to leave early. She just looked at him with those wide eyes and said, "Be careful, Daddy." Jake once asked a coworker, "Do kids just come out that good?" His buddy smiled. "Nah, that's parenting." Still, no matter how far they'd come, Jake always carried the weight of how they got there. Some nights, when Lily was asleep, he'd sit at the kitchen table, staring at the same photo of Emily. He didn't hate her. He had once, but not anymore. Because no matter what she'd done, no matter the pain, the betrayal, the chaos, she'd given him Lily. And Lily was everything. On Lily's 4th birthday, Jake wrapped a small stuffed Olaf toy in brown paper and left it on her pillow before waking her up with a pancake breakfast shaped like snowflakes. "Is it snowing in the kitchen?" she giggled. "Only for special princesses," Jake said with a grin. She hugged him tightly, her small arms barely reaching around his neck. "I love you, Daddy," she whispered. Jake held her close. There were no fireworks, no big parties, no sparkling tiaras or magic wands. But in that tiny kitchen, with a plate of overcooked pancakes and a 4-year-old in a paper crown, Jake realized. This life they had, though hard and messy and full of missing pieces, was still a life worth holding on to. Even if it wasn't the life he chose, it was the one he'd fight for every single day. The days leading up to Lily's 5th birthday came with a mix of excitement and dread. Jake could see in her eyes something was different this year. She wasn't just drawing snowflakes or humming Let It Go anymore. She was imagining, dreaming, hoping. At night, while Jake washed dishes in their small kitchen, Lily would sit at the table, swinging her legs, her voice light and shy. "Daddy, do you think Elsa eats birthday cake?" Jake paused. "I bet she does. Probably one with sparkly snow on top. Do you think, maybe, I could have one too?" His hands froze in the soapy water. "Just a small one," Lily added quickly. "Like, just enough for you and me. And Olaf." Jake turned around. Her eyes were wide, hopeful. The kind of hope that crushed a parent's heart when they couldn't make it real. He knelt beside her. "Sweetheart, we'll make something beautiful, okay? Daddy's gonna figure it out." She grinned and kissed his cheek. "I love you, Daddy." The next day, Jake stopped by the bakery again. Sweet Moments, the one with the Elsa cake in the window. He stood outside for a full minute, staring through the glass. The new display featured a towering Frozen-themed cake with sugar crystals and a spinning Elsa figurine on top. Inside, a woman in her late 60s was rearranging pastries on a tray. Her white hair was pulled back in a loose bun, her apron dusted with flour. Jake took a breath and walked in. The bell jingled. "Afternoon," she greeted warmly. "Hi," Jake said, awkward in his work clothes. "I was wondering, do you guys make, smaller cakes? Like really small? For kids?" She tilted her head. "Birthday?" He nodded. "Yeah, my daughter. She turns 5 next week." "What's her name?" "Lily." The woman smiled. "Pretty name. Let me guess. She's an Elsa girl?" Jake chuckled. "Is it that obvious?" She grinned and wiped her hands. "You're not the first tired dad I've seen come in here around this time of year." Jake pulled out a wrinkled $20 bill and a few crumpled ones from his pocket. "I don't have much, but I was hoping maybe a cupcake with snowflakes." The woman looked at the cash, then at him. Her expression softened. "What do you do, sweetheart?" "I'm a plumber. Been working double shifts to try and make something nice for her." There was a beat of silence. Then she held out her hand. "I'm Grace." "Jake." "Well, Jake," she said, glancing behind her at the display, "I think we can do better than a cupcake." Over the next few days, Jake worked non-stop, clearing drains, fixing boilers, replacing pipes in freezing basements. He skipped meals, canceled coffee breaks, even turned down a date from a friendly nurse who flirted with him at a gas station. His focus was Lily. That Saturday night, he came home just past 10 p.m., exhausted but satisfied. He'd made just over $70 in tips, more than he'd expected. Lily was asleep, her arms wrapped around Olaf, her lips moving softly in some snow-covered dream. Jake sat down beside her and whispered, "We're almost there, baby. One more day." Sunday morning, Lily woke up to the smell of pancakes and her favorite sound, the opening theme of Frozen playing softly on the tiny TV. Jake had taped up paper snowflakes all around the room. The heater sputtered, trying to keep up, but Jake had wrapped Lily's chair with a fuzzy blanket and even managed to borrow a small snow globe lamp from a coworker. After breakfast, he helped her put on a blue dress he found at a thrift shop, just the right shade of Elsa blue. She twirled and giggled, the skirt fanning out around her knees. "I'm really Elsa now, huh?" Jake bowed. "Your Highness." They arrived at the bakery around noon. Jake opened the door for her like a royal carriage driver. When they walked in, Grace was already waiting. Behind her was a small cake, no more than 6 inches wide, decorated with frosted snowflakes, a tiny sugar castle, and one name in looping blue letters: Lily. Lily gasped and clasped her hands over her mouth. Jake blinked back tears. "She helped me with the snowflakes," Grace whispered with a wink, pointing to her assistant in the back. "But how?" Jake asked softly. Grace waved it off. "I have a daughter. I lost her when she was 6. Every year, I make one cake I never got to give her. This year, I'm giving it to yours." Jake's throat closed up. He couldn't speak. "Don't worry about the money," Grace added. "You've already paid, just not in dollars. Lily ran up to Jake, hugging his leg. Best birthday ever. He crouched and held her close, burying his face in her hair. That night, back in their tiny apartment, Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, holding a piece of the cake and humming to herself. Jake watched her from the couch, holding a cup of cheap coffee, heart full. He looked around. The chipped walls, the dim light, the worn-out couch, the paper snowflakes still swaying in the warm air. And Lily, sitting there like a princess. For once, he didn't feel like he had to be more. He didn't feel poor. He felt rich. Because in that moment, with frosting on her nose and laughter in her voice, he had everything. The day after her birthday, Lily insisted on sleeping in her blue dress. She had frosting in her hair, and Jake spent 20 minutes trying to coax her into changing into pajamas. But Elsa doesn't wear pajamas, she protested. Jake laughed. Well, even Elsa needs to rest if she wants to keep making snow. She giggled and finally gave in. As he tucked her in a bed, she whispered, "Thank you for my cake, Daddy." Jake paused, brushing a wisp of blonde hair from her forehead. "Did you like it?" "I loved it," she murmured. "And I love you." His heart swelled. "I love you more, Snowflake." She smiled with sleepy eyes and turned onto her side. Within minutes, she was dreaming again, maybe of castles and snow monsters and Olaf's silly jokes. Jake sat beside her bed for a while, watching her chest rise and fall. He didn't know how long he sat there before his phone buzzed. A message from Grace. "Stop by tomorrow. There's something I want to talk to you about." The next morning, Jake dropped Lily off at preschool. She skipped into the classroom, holding a drawing of her cake in one hand and Olaf in the other. He made his way to Sweet Moments Bakery, feeling a little unsure. Grace was waiting for him in the back, sipping tea. She motioned for him to sit. "I wanted to thank you, Jake," she said. Jake blinked. "Me? I haven't made a birthday cake in years that actually felt right. That mattered. You and Lily. You brought something into this place that I didn't know I was missing." Jake smiled, touched but confused. "It's us who should be thanking you." Grace set her cup down. "I've been thinking. I'm old. My hands aren't what they used to be. My daughter was supposed to take over this place, but, well, life had other plans." She looked at him seriously. "How would you feel about coming in part-time? Helping around, learning the ropes? I could pay you. It's not plumbing, but it's steady. It's warm. And I think Lily would love having her dad around frosting and sugar every day." Jake was stunned. I don't know what to say." "Say yes." Jake chuckled, then nodded slowly. "Yes." Life didn't suddenly become easy. Jake still fixed pipes, still juggled bills. But now, a few mornings a week, he wore an apron instead of a wrench belt and learned how to whip buttercream and roll fondant. Lily started spending afternoons in the shop's back room, drawing pictures and giving cake designs very serious reviews. "Too much pink," she would say, arms crossed. Jake and Grace became an unexpected team, plumber by trade, baker by grace. And over time, word spread. The story of the single dad and a magical frozen cake touched people. Orders increased. Regulars came not just for desserts, but for kindness, for laughter, for warmth. One evening in spring, Jake closed up the bakery. Lily was sitting by the counter, swinging her legs, humming softly. "Daddy," she said, "I want to be a baker when I grow up, just like Miss Grace." He ruffled her hair. "You can be anything you want, but mostly I want to make birthday cakes for kids who never had one before." Jake stopped. His heart ached in the best possible way. "You'll be great," he whispered. "Can I start tomorrow?" He laughed. "Let's finish kindergarten first." Later that night, they walked home hand in hand under a sky full of stars. Lily looked up. "Do you think Elsa's watching us?" Jake looked at the little girl beside him, her blue hoodie flapping like a cape. "Yeah," he said softly. "I think she's very proud of you." They passed by the bakery window where, months ago, Lily had first seen the cake. She stopped and looked up at it. This time, she didn't ask for it. She turned to Jake and said, "I already got mine. I got everything." Jake crouched down and hugged her, his eyes stinging. So did he. He had it all, not in his wallet, but in his arms. Years later, on a warm April morning, Sweet Moments had a new name on its front window. Lily's Wishes, cakes made with love. Inside, a young woman in a flower-dusted apron laughed with a group of children gathered around the counter. Behind her, an older man in a blue shirt, still wearing a plumber's callus on his hands, piped icing onto cupcakes. There were still bills, still broken pipes, still long days. But every year on her birthday, Lily would bake one special cake for a child she'd never met, whose family couldn't afford it. And every year, she would leave a note tucked inside. "You are loved. Never forget that."